Welcome back to Redline Global Special. We will now take you to Lebanon, where my colleague Sahil is ready with his panelists. Sahil, you must have heard the debate before the break took place about whether Iran should or should not have nuclear weapons. It's very interesting. Where I'm sitting in South Asia, you understand better than anybody else, we have three nuclear powers. We have Pakistan, we've got India, we've got China. Where you're sitting right now, there is one nuclear power, that is Israel, and then there's one threshold power or potential power, that is Iran. But there can be more. As Saudi leadership has said, if Iran goes nuclear, we are going to go nuclear. So over to you. I want to listen to what your perspective is and your panelist perspective is from the heart of the Middle East. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Talat. Yes, I was listening to Michael and Dana. Michael has very rightly pointed out that in a conflict like this, there is no low-hanging fruit. So it's an excruciating process of negotiations and diplomacy, and it will take its own sweet time. Now, twice in less than a year, the United States has bombed Iran's nuclear program. Twice it has said that threat is gone, but political scientists who study strikes like these are unambiguous. Bombing a country does not remove its desire for a nuclear weapon. It hardens it. Sarah Gill reports on whether America's campaign against Iran's nuclear ambitions is stopping proliferation or guaranteeing it.
Can the US-Israeli war actually end Iran's nuclear ambitions?
Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated.
Yet just 8 months later, a massive joint US and Israeli mission launched another attack on Iran for the same reason. But here's what isn't being said. You can bomb a building, but you cannot destroy nuclear latency. That is, the technical, material, and intellectual capacity to build a nuclear weapon. And by attacking Iran, the US may be doing the exact opposite of what it intends, accelerating the very nuclear threat it says it wants to stop. Because now, in 2026, the war has escalated. US and Israeli strikes have killed Iran's second supreme leader, Ali Khamenei, and thousands of civilians. The justification is that Iran was close to a bomb. But how close were they really? Because the International Atomic Energy Agency paints a very different picture. Now, what Iran did have was around 440 kilograms of uranium enriched to roughly 60%. That is not weapons grade, but it is capable of becoming it. And this is where things start to get complicated. Because just hours before the current wave of strikes, Oman's foreign minister revealed a breakthrough, even appearing on American TV to announce it. So why would the US bomb a country it was on the verge of winning against at the negotiating table? And while America may have achieved its supposed immediate goal, political scientists who study strikes like these are clear. Bombing a state doesn't remove the desire for a nuclear deterrent. It strengthens it. And the evidence is already visible. Since 2020, China has gone from roughly 250 warheads to over 600. Finland has in recent weeks lifted a nuclear ban it had held since the 1980s. And the United States, the self-declared enforcer of non-proliferation, says it wants to resume nuclear testing for the first time since 1992. So the question we started with was simple. Could these strikes end Iran's nuclear ambitions? The evidence suggests something very different. They may have done the opposite, and not just for Iran, but for the world.
Let's pick up where Sarah left off and ask our guests to weigh in on Iran's nuclear ambitions. Joining us now from Istanbul is Borso Daragahi, longtime foreign correspondent and author of the newsletter Battlements at borso.substack. Also with us is Ibrahim Al-Marashi, international security analyst, joining us from Samarkand in Uzbekistan. First to you, Borso. Conflicts in the Middle East are no longer about missiles and large armies. How much have drones, cyber attacks, and proxy groups changed the balance of power?
Well, I think they've changed the balance of power a considerable bit, especially when it comes to strategies of warfare. We saw that in Ukraine with the much stronger Russians running into a quagmire when confronted with the more creative yet less powerful Ukrainians who came up with these strategies. Iranians studied those strategies. They did their homework, and they've been using those strategies against the Americans, against American allies and partners in the region. We used to consider drones something of a nuisance on the battlefield, something that people would laugh about. They were much more powerful in terms of surveillance, and also the sort of larger, more powerful, and much more expensive combat drones that the U.S. uses. But what we see in both Ukraine and Iran is the use of these basically multiple sources of power, including electricity, fiber optics. In the case of Hezbollah in Lebanon, these small suicide drones really making a difference, becoming much more than a nuisance, but becoming a strategic tool.
Are we now seeing a blur between conventional and non-conventional warfare?
Absolutely. This is under the same paradigm of hybrid warfare. The blurring of the conventional and the non-conventional ultimately means that there's a new asymmetry in conflict. Somebody could dominate the skies through drones that are cheaply made. Somebody can dominate cyberspace. And as a result, the conventional arsenal ensured a superpower's dominance is no longer a guarantee of success. Ukraine or in Ukraine versus Russia or Iran versus the U.S.
That's an important point, and let me take that point to Borso now. We are seeing relatively cheap technologies challenge major military powers. Does this mean smaller states and non-state actors now have much greater influence in war?
Well, I'm not sure, and I think that that remains to be seen. I think that's one variable, but another variable in both Ukraine and Iran is geography. You know, they say geography is determinant in these conflicts, and the fact is that when you are a invading force, when you are an attacking force, you are inherently at a disadvantage. And in the case of Iran, for example, it is a very mountainous country that makes it very kind of ideal for this kind of hybrid warfare because they're well hidden away inside various crevices in the country. In the case of Iran, I would say rather than it's a combination of both these new types of warfare, this kind of hybrid warfare that Dr. Marashi was talking about, as well as this geographical factor, and it's probably the geography is more significant.
I'll request both of our guests to stay on. Let me bring in my colleague Talat joining us from Lahore. He is, of course, hosting the show for SAMAA TV. Talat, over to you. Ask a question to our panel of guests here.
If you could reflect on the future combination of offensive and defensive weapons, because we started off with nukes and we are discussing low-end drones as well. Is there going to be a combination that will guarantee national security? Will it vary from country to country, region to region? You mentioned geography as well. So I'm just trying to understand, is there going to be the ideal fit that if you have this combination, this range of weaponry, this range of technology, you are okay in a world that is really chaotic?
I mean, on one level, one hopes it serves as a cautionary tale in that if Iran could put up such a robust defense, perhaps it will put on the brakes on future warmongering. It demonstrates that even if you think you have a more conventional military advantage, there's that so-called phrase, the fog of war, and that when the actual combat emerges, you can never anticipate the outcomes. And so, one would hope from a normative perspective, the Iran case would be it definitely, I think, has put an end to kind of the war-making capabilities of the U.S., at least for the near term, particularly under the Trump administration. So I would say it's for the better.
Borso, now coming to you, beyond the battlefield itself, how important is information warfare and social media in shaping public opinion during conflicts?
Well, I think at this point, it's important. I think that a lot of it is very important. The social media issue is very important right now. For Israel, it's very important. For the U.S., it's very important. And for Iran, it's been very important in this particular war. The shaping of perceptions, especially for a country like in the case of Iran or in the case of Vietnam during the U.S. invasion, the shaping of perceptions globally and in the enemy country is crucial and vital. And Iran has been able to utilize the lessons of the past as well as some creative new tools such as AI with these Lego videos and clever tweets from its foreign ministry and so on to shape the perception in the U.S. that Iran was this innocent country that was attacked unprovoked. It has likened the war to one waged by the Epstein class, an unjust war. It has tied its cause to that of the civil rights movement in the U.S. And these are lessons from the past. Ho Chi Minh employed similar strategies in getting the United States to back out of Vietnam and to create division inside the United States at the time of the war. So in this particular instance, it's very important. But it should be also said that, for the U.S., they don't care. I don't think that the U.S. government, it went to war with a very poor strategy, very poor social media strategy. It is not winning the social media war. It is not winning the battle of perceptions because it sort of stumbled into this conflict, and it's basically the ego of one man that's keeping it in the conflict.
It's an interesting point that you're sharing, that the U.S. government, the current administration, just doesn't care about perception. To you, Ibrahim, do you think Western governments and alliances have adapted quickly enough to this new kind of hybrid warfare? Because look what's happening. Russia, Ukraine, they were the first ones. That was the first one where we saw drones being exchanged. Then 2025, India, Pakistan, and now the ongoing conflict where Iran has been launching drone attacks into some Gulf states. And then there's been that crossfire of drones. So do you think that the Western governments, in a way, have not been very quick in adapting to this new hybrid warfare?
Absolutely, because when you're talking about Western governments, remember, you're talking about entrenched bureaucracies with their own interests. And by their nature, bureaucracies are always reactive. They're not proactive. So to just, follow up on Borzu's point, remember during the rise of ISIS, the State Department was tasked with creating social media messages to basically prevent youth from being seduced by ISIS's social media. And they were just awful. They were you had made fun of. Compared to the White House and their social media campaign. It hasn't compared to Iran, where in the Iranian case, a lot of the Lego videos aren't made by the government themselves, but kind of outsourced by these kind of content producers in the public, opposed to the government control. If you look at the Department of Defense in the U.S. as well, this is a bureaucracy that actually wedded to the old ways of fighting, aircraft carriers, tanks, advanced aircraft, and basically bureaucracies like that weren't ready to adopt to the low-cost drone campaigns of Iran. And of course, you could say the same of Russia, that its massive bureaucracy hadn't learned the lessons from neither the Georgia War of 2008 and on the 2020 invasion of Ukraine. It failed to anticipate that these kind of low-cost drones would make the Russian military advantage almost mute.
Absolutely, you're right, Ibrahim, there. Thank you so much, Ibrahim and Borso, for really adding great perspective to this story. And with that, we have come to the end of this special 3-day simulcast between South Era Network and SAMAA TV. Wars used to end, now they evolve. Over the last few days, we have discussed so many different layers: nuclear weapons, AI, information warfare, China and the US relations, India and Pakistan, and the South Asia as a whole. That's what we wanted to bring together, use SAMAA's strengths and combine it with South Era Network strengths, and together help you viewers make better sense of the story there in Pakistan, all across South Asia, and to the entire South Asian diaspora, and for us at South Era Network, the whole global South. Over to you, Talat.
Thank you very much, Sahil. I could not have summed it up better than you have. This is exactly how it has been, a remarkable journey of learning, of reporting. I was looking at the guest list. We have touched 3 continents, and we have had 30 guests of different genre, foreign diplomats, generals, bureaucrats, analysts, social media activists, political representatives, you name it. And the topics that we covered, you had named some of them, total about 12, including today's biggest story, the meeting in Beijing. Also the number of people who were involved on Sen side, on SAMAA side, and I was counting, generally speaking, about 120 people were deployed to essentially produce this transmission. Camera crew, technicians, editorial guys, researchers, all of them burnt the candle from both hands and produced this remarkable transmission. Of course, the viewers' feedback is going to tell us how remarkable it is, but I can tell you as somebody who does only one thing, that is journalism, and I'm sure, Sahil, you do the same thing, this has been a truly path-breaking, trailblazing kind of an experience. It won't be the last of the 3 programs that you would see. This has developed into some sort of a matrix, some sort of a pilot project that has gone to the next level. And anytime the world expects us to debate important issues and bring you special insights, we shall be there, Sen and SAMAA together. Thank you very much for watching, and have a great day.